Hi, I'm Bruce Barrett. I'm a professor in the Family Medicine and Community Health Department at the University of Wisconsin. And I'm going to be speaking to you about eco-wellness, living life to maximize health, happiness, and environmental sustainability. I think pretty much everyone agrees that health and happiness are good goals, and I expect most people at this conference would like to reduce their carbon footprints. We are all aware of the devastating effects of climate change, the climate catastrophe, and I think we would all like to help reduce those problems. It all stems from increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide are the most predominant. We've been measuring the increase in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere for the last 60 years. This graphic here shows the Keeling curve where we have annual oscillations, little zigzag sawteeth going up on this graphic. And I consider that that comes from the annual breathing of the planet, where in the northern hemisphere, the boreal forests breathe in the carbon dioxide while they produce billions of leaves. And then at the end of the year, the leaves drop and decompose, and the carbon dioxide is on the exhalation back into the atmosphere. We've been measuring the temperature of Earth's surface for 100 years, and we've noticed a major increase in temperature from 1975 till today, up close to 2 degrees Fahrenheit, with no end in sight. The problem with this is that we end up with an Earth that's nearly uninhabitable in many of the areas where people currently live. Temperatures could be up as high as 6 to 10 degrees centigrade from pre-industrial levels, and that is just incompatible with a decent quality of life. There's only two things that we can do about it. We can mitigate, we can reduce greenhouse gases, or we can adapt as the planet changes, as it heats up. Luckily, many of the things we can do about it bring their own positive benefits, economic benefits, as well as population health and ecological benefits. So we're aiming for the co-benefits. It turns out that between 60% and 75% of our carbon footprint comes from decisions, choices, habits, behaviors made at the individual and household level. And at the same time, over half of variances in morbidity and mortality are attributable to social and behavioral factors. There's a huge area of co-benefit between those two facts. Carbon footprints vary tremendously. This graphic shows the average American carbon footprint, where the vast majority comes from transportation and housing and food. Each of these things, each of these areas can be reduced, improved, some through engineering, but mostly through decision-making and changed behaviors. We developed our program here at University of Wisconsin, first called it Mindful Climate Action, thinking it was residing at the corner of green and serene, aiming for eco-wellness, or living life to maximize health, happiness, and environmental sustainability. There are, of course, many different things that people can do, pro-environmental behaviors. We focus mostly on diet and exercise movement. We base our program on mindfulness-based stress reduction developed by John Kabat-Zinn at the University of Massachusetts. We have an 8-week curriculum where people learn the basics of mindfulness as they're practicing meditations. We move through the weeks from air, where you do breath meditation, to water meditation, food, eating, mindful eating. And we learn about ecological principles along the way with short videos by some of the world's preeminent scientists. We base our program on a conceptual model of the trans-theoretical model, also known as stages of change, where people can start out being deniers, climate change deniers, and then once they realize the science and the importance of it, they're acceptors. They may move on to being a supporter of policies that can improve a lot, or even an activist out there trying to really get things changed. Another way of thinking of this is with the graphic, where you grow from the acorn of being a denier up to a full oak tree of being an activist. One of the most important things we can all do is to eat better. No one has a perfect diet. There's always room for improvement. It turns out that eating whole grains, vegetables, legumes, fruits, nuts, and seeds is just healthier for the body as well as healthier for the planet. This data here comes from over 200,000 people followed for over 30 years, and showing that as you improve the sustainability of your diet, as measured by the Planetary Health Diet Index, you reduce your risks of mortality by as much as 20 or 30%. This is more powerful than most medical, or almost all medical interventions. The next major area is movement. And what we can all do is spend more of our time walking, biking, swimming, and less of our time in mechanized transport. We can reduce air travel. We can use buses and trains rather than individual cars. The carbon footprints are just much lower as we use public transport or as we move to our own feet and legs. When we're using our own feet and legs, we improve our health. Exercise is, next to diet, one of the most important things people can do for their health. We're trying to push forward the scientific study of behavioral eco-wellness, defined as the choices, behaviors, and habits that promote both personal health and environmental sustainability. We've done a bit of measurement on our own, where we can measure people's movement and then translate that into miles and minutes traveled, and then into a carbon footprint if those miles and minutes traveled are in a mechanized vehicle. We can look at dietary intake the same way, and we can look at the use of energy in the home also. We've found doing pre-post comparison using the Promise 29 health questionnaire that people improve their physical function, their anxiety, their depression, and their fatigue from the first day of this 8-week course until the last day. Statistically significant and probably clinically significant. And so I will encourage all of us to be thinking about the various ways that we can contribute to a healthier, happier planet while reducing our own carbon footprint and contributing to ecological sustainability. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcia Degelman. I'm a massage therapist and a certified health and wellness coach. And I work at the Osher Center for Integrative Health at the University of California in San Francisco. And I'll be talking today about the blue zones, which are areas around the world where people live to be 100. And these were coined by Dan Beutner with the National Geographic expedition. He found several places in the world where there are these clusters of centenarians. And these areas are Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and maybe most surprising, Loma Linda, California. So let's start with Okinawa, Japan. So they have several lifestyle habits that I think we could embrace here, also for our own health and the health of our planet. So the elders sit on the floor. They have low tables, and so they get up and down from the floor multiple times a day. And this is a great way to keep their core strength. And while we might not want to eat on the floor, we could practice yoga. So it gives us a chance to get up and down from the floor every day. And there's no time pressure in Okinawa. There are no trains. So this adds to a more relaxed lifestyle. Another thing that they do is they have a saying, Hari Hachi Bu, which is to eat until you're 80% full. So one of the things that we could practice is pushing our plate away when we're 80% full. They have a culture of visiting one another. They have these small groups where they have a lot of social support every day, where they visit one another. And they eat a lot of multicolored vegetables. They eat miso soup for breakfast. Now, how different is that than the typical American breakfast of bacon and eggs? They eat a lot of purple sweet potatoes and bitter greens, and their protein is mostly from tofu, which is a certain kind of fermented tofu. And they drink jasmine green tea throughout the day. This is how they get their antioxidants. And their focus is on igigaki, which translates as life purpose. What is your reason for getting up in the morning? This is an important concept for healthy longevity. And there's no word for retirement. So they keep working, and that keeps them young. And they have a ceremony for the people who turn 97. They say they're celebrating their second childhood. Now, there are enough people that turn 97 that they have a ceremony. So think about that for a moment. Another place where people are long-lived is Sardinia, Italy. And it's mostly in the interior of this island where the mountains are, where they're getting constant moderate exercise, bringing their flocks of goats and sheep up and down the hills. They have a biting sense of humor, a sardonic wit that comes from Sardinia. So humor is another really important aspect to longevity. Humor is a great way to deal with difficulty in life. If you can laugh, it really helps. And they drink a certain kind of red wine, which is really high in polyphenols, which is where they get their antioxidants from. And they have strong family ties, and their elders are part of the community, and they live with their children. Another place where people are long-lived is Ikaria, Greece. And Ikaria is a really interesting island. For a long time, it had no port. So people were very self-sufficient there. They were doing all their chores by hand. They were eating all of the local greens that grow, and they had, hives for their honey. They eat a Mediterranean diet, olive oil and almonds and sourdough bread and raw honey. And they have all-night dance parties in the summer, all ages. So dancing and joy is also a really important part of longevity. And they drink an herbal tea made of sage and rosemary, which is anti-inflammatory. They make their own wine underground. It's a natural process using no chemicals. And their focus is on joyful movement and connection. Another place where people live to be 100 is the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. And they have really strong bones. And so they were wondering, is it something in the water? And it turns out, yes, it is. They have very hard water, and they have a lot of calcium in their water. So they have strong bones, and they're out in the sun, so they have really high levels of vitamin D. They do physical work. They do ranching and farming, and their focus is also on the family. And they eat corn and beans and squash, and they drink coffee. And this is where they get their antioxidants from. And they have a saying there, pura de vida, which means your life purpose. Why are you getting up in the morning? Who can you serve? And that brings us to Loma Linda, California. There are a lot of centenarians. And Loma Linda is a suburb of Los Angeles. It's about 60 miles east of Los Angeles. And this is where Seventh-day Adventists settled. And they are vegetarians, and they eat a lot of nuts and beans. And they have no alcohol or tobacco or coffee or tea or stimulating spices. So it may be the things that they're not doing that keep them healthy even more than the things they are doing. But the things that they do a lot of volunteerism. They take care of one another. They look out for one another. And they also have a strong religious sense of purpose. And here they have a Sabbath, this idea where they have a day where they turn off the TV, where they don't engage with social media, and instead they visit their friends and their family. So this is another concept that we could all probably benefit from, is a little bit of digital detox. So what can we do? So there was a Danish twin study that turns out it showed that longevity is only 25% of your genes and it's 75% of your lifestyle. So what can we do? What most of these people do is moderate, consistent exercise every day. Any chance you have to walk up the hill or walk up the stairs instead of the elevator, any chance, think of exercise as an opportunity. You can walk up a hill, dancing with joy, humor also very important. Sit on the floor, get up and down from the floor if you can. Visit your friends and your family, make that a priority. Eat more vegetables and less meat. It's better for the planet. It's a better use of our resources. These are some healthy foods: olive oil, rice, beans, corn, tofu, tea, coffee, sourdough bread, honey. Eat until you're 80% full. Push yourself away from the table. And stress less. Find ways to daydream, to just let yourself be. If you can, avoid the time pressure. If you're in a hurry, just tell yourself you're dashing instead of rushing, so you're not adding to your anxiety. Volunteer, help others. It's a great way to have a sense, a reason for living, pura de vida and ikigaki. Why are you getting up in the morning? And there's actually a correlation with hilly terrain and longevity. And of course, the focus of today's symposium is how individual health leads to planetary health. I'd like to think of this as the blue-green zone. And this idea of embracing effort instead of convenience. It's simple pleasures, dancing and joy, less walking, more walking, less driving. Eating a plant-based diet, less meat is better for the planet. Make your food from scratch. Go to the farmer's market. There's less packaging and less chemicals, and in general, less stuff and more connection. So with that, I invite you to enjoy the rest of the symposium about how our healthy people lead to a healthy planet, and a healthy planet supports healthy people. Thank you.
Hello, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Mladen Golubic, and I'm the medical director at the Osher Center for Integrative Health here at the University of Cincinnati. And I'm super grateful to the organizing committee for allowing me to present this exciting symposium and share with you some ideas about healthy eating and what we can do to eat better, to improve our own health and health of the Earth's ecosystems on which we all depend. Aside from all-out nuclear war, climate crisis and chronic diseases are two major challenges for our young planetary civilization. And those both crises are connected to our lifestyle choices. Lifestyle has many domains. Here are 7 of the main ones that all interact through a number of well-established pathophysiological mechanisms that assure that our health is optimal, that we prevent the disease, or if we need, we can treat it and reverse it. It's not surprising that our lifestyle in general, and especially our dietary choices that we'll focus today, have impact on our so-called carbon footprint, how much carbon is produced, released into the environment. And as you can see on this graph to the right, currently the content of CO2 in atmosphere is over 400 parts per million, which hasn't existed on our planet for the past The last time that happened was 3 million years ago, when none of our ancestors were alive. So clearly we are in completely uncharted new territory for our species. Carl Sagan and his wife Anne wrote beautifully that all flesh is sunlight. Essentially, molecules that build our bodies come from sunlight that is captured by photosynthetic plants. And then herbivores eat those plants and in the process lose about 90% of energy. And then carnivores eat those herbivores and again lose enormous amount of energy, retaining only 10%. So they stated that organisms at the top of the food chain seem inefficient to the point of irresponsibility. Now, we cannot blame polar bears for being carnivores, but we humans, we know as omnivorous great apes, we can thrive perfectly well on plant-based diets. And American College of Lifestyle Medicine recommends an eating pattern that is predominantly consisting of unprocessed whole vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. And those are those patterns well established, like in the blue zones or Mediterranean cultures. Michael Pollan said it even shorter in 7 words: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. What he meant by eat food is eating real food, not food-like substances that we call now ultra-processed foods that most of us cannot make in our kitchens, and they have been consistently associated with increased risk up to 32 chronic conditions. So the power of plant-based eating has been demonstrated numerous times. I'll give you 2 examples. One is this lecture that Dr. Kim Williams, past president of the American College of Cardiology, gave here and then repeated as a grand rounds at the University of Cincinnati a couple of years ago, asking question, can we put cardiologists out of business in 10 years? And his major focus was the work done by 2 physicians, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Dr. Dean Ornish, who have shown that whole foods plant-based diet alone or combined with other lifestyle modifications can result in arrest and reversal of even advanced coronary artery disease. And then Dr. Ornish went a step further. If this is good for heart, it must be good for brain, must be good for other organs. So he asked question, can it help patients with mild cognitive impairment, early dementia due to Alzheimer's disease? And the answer is yes. Recently published results from his randomized clinical trials exactly show that improved cognition and function in those patients who follow plant-based eating and other lifestyle modifications. So if this sounds too good to be true, there must be some downside to that. And some people worry that once we humans consume more whole, unrefined, high-fiber plant foods, will have increased flatulence and contribute to global warming. Now, if you look at 6 different diets in the US and you measure carbon footprint of those diets, vegan and vegetarian were clearly lower in carbon footprint than other omnivorous diets by several fold. In fact, we have solid data that animal agriculture is the major contributor to the total greenhouse gas emissions, about 1/5, and in some studies actually double of that. So what can we do to ensure that we have healthy, sustainable diets and that we can feed 8 billion hungry human mouths? These are 3 major steps. Step number 2, diet. Attention to food waste are the things that we can do all starting today. These are a couple of references that have many more details about connection between our diet and environmental health. I'll just mention a few things. As we have seen by Dr. Sagan, production of animal foods is very wasteful. It takes about 7 pounds of plant protein to produce 1 pound of beef and 6,000 gallons of water. If one would have to put price on a pound of beef, it would be like 4 times higher than what currently is. We also use an enormous amount of agricultural land to produce food to feed livestock rather than feeding humans directly. And such an intensive requirements deplete the quality of our soil. and our 32nd president correctly stated, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself, because we cannot grow food. Animal agriculture also contributes to antibiotic resistance, because most antibiotics are fed to animals rather than for human treatment. And in fact, recent reviews suggest that 40 million people will perish because we will not be able to treat their bacterial infections. Needless to say, cramming animals' births into such horrible conditions and other mammals leads to enormous misery and suffering of those creatures. Focusing on food waste, reducing food waste would really require change in culture and our social factors. Just ensuring better planning, not being very wasteful in what we buy, learning how to cook, how to prepare secondary meals. There are many steps we can do to ensure that we waste less food. And of course, those sustainable diets will vary from different parts of the world, because we have different habits and different cultures, different environments. This is our culture. Driving to my work at UC Health, I see this advertisement that makes me proud to be a member of physician profession, because we can reverse even stroke, which is an amazing medical miracle. However, we do nothing, almost nothing, to make sure that we don't get more patients who will have stroke or heart attacks or cancers. And this is our food environment that we need to change. Clearly, medicine cannot achieve this on its own. We are just one aspect in the global society. So no matter where you work, what do you do, what's your profession, where you worship, we all have to emphasize that transition to more plant-based, unrefined, unprocessed foods. Some people worry that we need to focus more on protecting the earth rather than our health. And this cartoon kind of shows how important it is that we really put ourselves first, because the earth will be protected, because we know that if we want to thrive, all the ecosystem have to function properly. So what you can do, experiment, try a new plant-based dish. Go slowly, progress not perfection, evaluate what you do. Check our websites. There are plenty of resources, and American College of Lifestyle Medicine has wonderful, wonderful resources. If nothing else, if you are not excited at all about eating more plant foods, then just slow down, chew well, eat mindfully. It will going to help you eat healthier on a longer run. There is no shortage of recipes. These are on our websites. Our two amazing chefs, Pamela Sharp, who is our nurse practitioner and chef, and Chef Stephanie Mitchell-White, and my colleagues from Cleveland Clinic have plenty of resources. You can check those. But above all, make sure that you eat plants, keep moving, sleep well, be present, stay calm, and love people. And as Mr. Spock would say, eat right, live long, and prosper. Thank you.